Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories. So we hope to see you in the community.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm really excited. I have my friend Dr. Scott Dell. Dr. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? And then we're going to talk about a really interesting topic, artificial intelligence.
Jeff, thrilled to be here. Glad to be able to share. I enjoy conversations with you immensely. Some of my background, yes, I'm a full-time academic, about 15 years now, entrepreneur for 20 plus, but have some passions in the career space, helping folks figure out their direction. I wrote a book on LinkedIn and happened to be able to assist from the why, the assessment side, on down to how do I level up once I find the internship or job opportunities. That excites me, and hopefully it gets folks good for the economy, good for personal and professional development, and good for growing families and getting past the imposter syndrome that many seem to have these days in this age. Lately, though, I'm glad you brought up the AI chatbot realm. The Chat GPT 3.5 and the GPT-4. That is an amazing environment. I've been doing keynotes and speaking a lot on that as of late. But it's a fascinating environment. It is going to change the way we live. It's changing our world. I think it's bigger than the printing press, bigger than the wheel. Maybe not as much as writing, but in general, pretty close.
There's another revolution coming, I think, and that's, I look back on the invention. I personally believe that one of the greatest inventions in our history was the Gutenberg press. Let's talk about artificial intelligence in general first. So for a lot of people, Scott's background is academic. I think it was about 6 months ago, you and I had a really interesting conversation about the application. So let's jump in. What are you seeing in the artificial intelligence world, and whose hands is it going to be the most influential in?
Well, let's take a step back for a minute and talk about the term artificial intelligence. It's been around over 60 years, but it's not intelligence at this point. It's not smart. We give it these human characteristics. We say it's thinking. It's not thinking. It's word projection. It's an LLM, a large language model. It says, I got a whole bunch of words and they relate. And so when we ask a question, it says, oh, based on those words, here's what the logical response might be. And then here's a 90% chance the next word and the next word, and it keeps building. And it can go down a path. It can veer off in an amazing direction that's totally wrong, what's called hallucinating, or what I call lies. But the other direction is it can give you some pretty good insights based on if you're experienced, and the way you prompt. This prompt engineer field is a growing field. It's a powerful area to be able to develop a skill and be able to ask questions. The smart person is the one that can ask the questions, not necessarily answer them.
So now we've talked a lot about, the iterations of artificial intelligence. Let's not get into the history, but where do you see the most value for the experts, the knowledgeable people today?
I'm glad you brought that up, because it really is an expert that can take best advantage. you can magnify 10 times your effectiveness if you're an expert. If you're a novice, you don't know what's right and wrong. If you're an expert, you can evaluate and say, oh, this is pretty cool, or this is pretty limiting, but here's some other ideas, and it can interject things, it can add things. It's a great tool to be a sounding board, a springboard for other ideas, for articles. I just use it to generate a PowerPoint presentation for content. I said, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. And it was a pretty extensive prompt that here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to get across. And it came through and I said, give me an outline. Okay, produce slides. Oh, what pictures should I include on those slides? And some I agreed with and some I didn't agree with, but it gave me some good ideas and it was a good point to build off on. If I was a novice, it would be scary. I'll give you an example. You know, accounting, my accounting students. Last December, okay, I mean, ChatGPT, million users in 5 days, 100 million users in 2 months. It just blossomed, it ballooned. It grew extensively. So second week in December, I was playing with it saying, here's my accounting exam. All right, let me ask some questions. The first 5 out of 6 questions it got right. And I said, dang, my students are going to cheat like mad dogs, right? They're going to go on. I'm going to take a take-home exam. They're going to cut and paste. Here's the question. Go ChatGPT. Have a good time. The next 6 out of 7 questions, it got wrong. And I was more worried. Well, why are you worried? They can't cheat as well. The problem is my students are going to believe the answers. They're going to say that, oh, yeah, I'll step by step. It logically, it made the calculation. Here's the answer. It was wrong. I got a 46% on my exam. Now, my students, I think it was an 82 or 83% average overall. But that tells me that the tool, it does hallucinate. It does not always give right answers. It's pretty bad at math in a lot of areas. I will say GPT-4 is vastly improved. That same exam got an 82% on GPT-4. But being able to use it as a tool, if you're an expert, I can look at that problem. I say, that's wrong. That's nonsense. Where my students are going to look at that and say, well, is it wrong? I don't know. So I'll tell you what I did. You'll appreciate this from an accounting perspective. I have You're the Auditor exams. Here's a multiple choice question. Here's a ChatGPT answer. They're going to get it anyway. So they're going to explore. Here's 3 alternatives. One of those 4 is right. And if you want to get a 52% on the exam, circle A. ChatGPT is right. You got a 52, guaranteed. I'm telling you, half the answers are correct. Half of them, 48% were wrong. And this was consistent on 2 tests I did. I didn't have to randomize. I didn't have to pull out correct answers to get it to 50-50. They were both ballpark 50-50, correct and wrong. So when I gave the exam, and my students did much better than 50 overall. Not everybody, by the way. But anyways, the opportunity for ChatGPT to really, it's going to make the mistakes, but I want my students to think critically. And as an academic, I need to think critically in developing these tools and have my students use them best. I only got the doctorate in 2019. I'm pretty relative recent doctoral recipient, but
you're not buried in what's the word when you've got tenure? You're not.
Yeah, I'm tenure track, by the way, because I moved from Wisconsin to South Carolina. I have the Wharton MBA. I do have the CPA. My second master's though was in education technology, so I keep the fingers wet. But I couldn't imagine doing the doctorate without computers. I mean, the old days, and it's like CPA exam, 2.5 days with 500 of my closest friends in the armory, right? But now it's online. Same thing with a doctorate. I can imagine going to the stacks, and the library, and the archives, and the research. And there's the mold in we got mold in our library. I found out on campus. It's like, okay, this is frustrating, but you don't need to get exposed to the mold. You just go online, and you have access to all the tools. ChatGPT and GPT-4 are those kind of tools that were integrated. And you're right, the Gutenberg press, major change. And there's major fears when it came about. You can start printing flyers. You can start printing lies. And people did. Or you can print books and Bibles. But those are tools. There's room for good and room for not so good. But I think AI chatbots and artificial intelligence is bigger than the Gutenberg press.
And
I mean, think of it, if I may interject, think about when the
yeah,
calculator came out. Math educators said, "Oh, it's a scourge. It's ruining our math teaching abilities. If you can't do calculations in your head, what is it? Why do we need that?" Einstein was right. He said, "Don't put the useless information in your head. Get the useful stuff." So when you're looking at it, saying calculator is not the end of the world, the web was not the end of the world.
yeah,
I mean, you're doing a search and you're trying to get information. Google is not your enemy.
no.
Wikipedia is not the enemy. Now, don't trust it. I can change Wikipedia, and I have. I've obviously put correct things in there, but anybody can change it and put in lies. So you got to validate, trust but verify for Wikipedia and for AI chatbots, because
Well,
the answer you'd be skeptical.
I'm just realizing that the last time you and I chatted was right around Christmas when we were talking about that. And I think that was the moment you and I were both sort of, where's this going? I love the fact that you're reiterating, just like in the artificial intelligence, um, creating tests that test people's critical thinking skills. Because that's one of the things, back in the day, wrote exams a long, long time ago. And, I remember the hand cramps our exam was 4 hours, 4 days. And I was like, who does that? Like,
Yep.
there was no critical skills. It was just mindless memorization and repetition.
Spit it
Um,
back.
yeah, it's like, can I regurgitate? But I love the idea, and that's, I think, where that's a brilliant innovation. AI is going to spin a whole bunch of things, and as the instructor, it's your job to say, well, that's right, that's wrong. But to make people, I don't want my kids to learn how to memorize things. I'm a big fan of the internet, and yes, there's some weird stuff out there, and there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. But I want my kids to be able to look at it and say, is this good or bad, and why?
Right. Although from a calculator perspective, I still want my students to take a number and, a colleague of mine, marketing program director at a small college, he says, I was the number 2 guy at Smuckers. I went and interviewed a lot of people for marketing, but I asked him an accounting question. I say, I got $60. I have 15% markup on this product. How much am I selling it for? And I'll ask my questions in a basic accounting class. They're not even accounting majors. How many can answer that? I'm amazed at how many say, I don't feel comfortable making that calculation. So I walked through. I said, okay, what's 10% of $60? 10%. Move a decimal for me. What's 10%? Okay, that's $6. Then what 5%? What's half of that 10%? Oh, that's $3. Okay, so I got 6 and 3. That's $9. I take 60 plus 9. I get 69.
Yeah.
Now, frankly, I haven't asked my colleague if the student took out a calculator to do that, would they be penalized? I think I'd be comfortable if they took out a calculator, as long as they knew the theory, the background. But then again, if somebody quotes you numbers, and I've had pretty high level folks come out there and say, "Yep, we grew sales by 20%," or we based on salaries, they grew 30% in the city, and they were politicians. And I did the mental arithmetic, and I said, I didn't flag them down in public, it's criticized in private, but I said, by the way, double check your numbers. The math you shared with us is a little bit faulty, but I want my students to be comfortable enough to do 50%, 10%, 5%, even 1%. I do 1%. I go, what's 10% of $1 million? 10% is 100,000. 10% again is 10,000. Okay, so that's 1%. Because I sometimes lose the decimals myself.
Yeah.
But you still need to be able to do the math, even though a calculator can probably punch it through. I still want mental arithmetic to have somewhat of a comfort level. Let me give you one more AI or 2 more AI examples. One of the things that I've done since December when AI came out, I started a newsletter, LinkedIn newsletter, it's called Career Capsule. Every issue, I have a ChatGPT conversation. So I have examples in addition to the content. I mean, I'm writing the content, and sometimes I'm using it for ideas and a springboard, but I'm still writing the content. And in the book that we have a book for the career space, starts with your why, your assessments, the Simon Sinek why, the idea and directions you're going, and then how to get there. Each chapter has a TLDR, too long don't read, section that's chat GPT generated. And the 17th chapter is how to use AI in the job search and the career search, because that's really a golden element to be able to help you succeed. So, but it's influencing us all. You asked me earlier, who's this going to most affect? This is probably more affecting white collar folks than blue collar. I mean, robotics, obviously, blue collar replacing, but it's not. I'll quote the World Economic Forum. They said 85 million jobs by 2025 will be eliminated because of AI. They said 97 million will be created because of AI. Okay, you don't need a calculator for 97 million minus 85 million. That sounds like 12 million net gain.
Yep.
My concern is the timing. I think the timing, we're going to lose the jobs quicker. It's going to take longer to blossom out and build those jobs, because it'll still have to take some new skills. And it is changing our economy. It's going to change capitalism. I really see that this is a major impact on all of our futures.
Well, I think they talk about the four major revolutions, and I think we
Fourth
entered
industrial.
the technology one in 60s, 70s. I feel like that period, if you study them, gets shorter and shorter and shorter. I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg now with artificial intelligence. As you said, net gain on jobs. There's going to be disruption. There's going to be a timing issue where, some people are going to lose jobs, some people are going to gain. But I have a feeling with some of the stuff I'm seeing, a lot of it's more intuitive. The focus is on simplifying. And one example I'll share is I see all the time robotics meant to replace warehouse workers. And I won't say the big company, but there's a large company that started as a bookstore online. There's a lot of complaints about labor and things like that, because people are working long shifts and not getting bathroom breaks. And now I'm seeing the robotics coming out. It's like, what human would want to do that job if they could be the one maintaining the robots instead?
Well, think about it. Okay, I'll give some examples. There's McDonald's outside Texas, or in Texas, outside one of the major cities. It is you order on drive through. It's all automated. Yeah, there's somebody in there popping burgers and buns somewhere, but you're not interacting with a human at all. Well, is that going to replace fast food workers? We have a shortage of fast food workers, in case you didn't notice.
Yep.
I don't know if we're replacing anybody, but it's making an environment that allows those services to be done and conducted in a cost-efficient manner. And frankly, if we get minimum wage up to 25, 30 bucks an hour, I'm not spending $18 on a Big Mac. I'll let you know that right now. It won't be good for the economy, but that's not where it's going to go. So we think about the impact. There's going to be some major capitalism impacts on this. But the same thing, think about accountants. Okay, we understand accounting. 100 years ago, there were 30 accountants for a firm of 100 people. And then 50 years ago, there were 10 or 15 accountants for a firm of 100 people. Nowadays, you can get away with 2 accountants, 1.5 maybe, for a firm of 100 people, a company of 100 people. And you look at that and say, do we have all these unemployed accountants now? We have a shortage of accountants. We can't get enough. The pipeline's not there. So the opportunities, now accountants are CFOs. They're in the C-suite. They're doing higher level stuff. These tools are going to let all of us do higher level stuff, do the creative stuff that these tools are not real good at. And you brought up a great point earlier when you said it was a lot slower to implement. You probably heard of the 10-10 rule. TV took 10 years to develop technology, 10 years to accept it. Then color TVs came in, telephones came in. It's no longer a 10-10 rule. We're lucky if it's a 2-month, 2-year rule, because the technology, everything's in the cloud. Even QuickBooks is discontinuing support of their standalone version, their desktop version. Why? Well, they can generate 20, 30, 40 bucks a month revenue. I can understand that. But they can also save you as a customer from hiring a $20,000 to $60,000 part-time or full-time computer geek, computer guru. I was a computer geek from way back when. A guru to come on and do all this updating. Okay, we got the new version. We got to update it. Dang it! Our old data didn't transfer right. I did a 2.5-month transfer of data for a client from Solomon Accounting Software. It was running in my basement for 2.5 months before it was done. I was checking it every day. Come on, please finish. And it was a lot of job cost information was being transferred. It just rolled on and on. And now it's being done in the cloud. They wouldn't have to pay me. Now my computer, I didn't charge, full rates for my computer running for 2.5 months.
Yeah.
But the idea was we're able to get things done more efficient and cleaner. And I'm going to share one slide with you. I think you might appreciate this if you want to.
Yes,
if you're
please.
okay with that. Okay. You've probably heard of Moore's law. Gordon Moore recently passed away, unfortunately. But the whole idea, number of transistors every 2 years doubles, cost cuts in half. For the past decade, AI, Sevilla had a study. Okay, I'm turning academic on you, but this highlights the doubling every 6 months, not every 2 years. And this has been going on for a decade of AI.
Yeah.
And they say new algorithm techniques, large data sets. The biggest one is that third element, increased computational power. Because we only recently, since 2015, 2016 was a real AI boon coming around. And now it's 8 years later, we're there. But the whole tool, the ability, this highlights, we're quadrupling every year and have been for the past 10 years, for the past decade. They say Moore's law is slowing down. Sevilla's study is not slowing down.
And that's the thing. I think, Moore's law was when we were calculating how long it took humans to innovate. That's the magic of the, artificial intelligence. We won't get into Skynet today because we've had that conversation, but
amen.
When we have, now I read an article about digital printers being programmed by artificial intelligence to reproduce the artificial intelligence based robots. Once we get into that computational power, you're still going to need a human at the helm to say, I don't know if that'll work, but I think we're going to see that doubling effect much quicker. I mean, it's, the difference between, this is an old story. I don't know if I ever shared with you, Scott. My grandfather was actually a literal gravedigger back in his day. And we have records from when, in the 1920s, 1930s, he'd have a team of men with shovels and he'd have a team of horses. And I think it was like 5 cents a day for a human and 15 cents a day for a team. And I remember when my grandfather told us the story of the year he bought himself a backhoe, he went from, doubling his productivity by, just hiring more people. In the 60s, 70s, he bought a backhoe. And what used to take days, he dug graves and things like that. What took days in the summertime when the ground was soft and you could dig, he could do it in the winter in an hour with a backhoe.
Wow.
And now you look at those, I live in Alberta with the oil patch. We've got these massive cranes and diggers and trucks. They can do it in minutes, what used to take him hours. I think AI is going to really, my prediction, and I'm going to guess here, is it's going to accelerate rapidly. We can either get along and join the ride, or we can just stand still and wonder what the hell happened in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I'll share one more slide with you because I think you'll enjoy and appreciate what's going on with the technology. Actually, I'm pulling this out from a presentation I had. I'll share 2 more slides because the evolution of this stuff is pretty fast, but the acceptance, you've probably heard the product life cycle of how things are accepted. I don't know if you ever heard of the Gartner hype cycle, but the Gartner hype cycle basically talks about technology trigger, peak of inflated expectations, down to disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, plateau of productivity. So I just talked to a colleague earlier this week out of Missouri, and she was talking about how, you know what, this chat GPT stuff, which came out down here, trigger November 30th, 2022. All right. Peak of inflated expectations. Within 4 to 6 weeks, expectations were very high. Disillusionment, it lies, it hallucinates. Slope of enlightenment, this is a pretty powerful thing, pretty powerful tool. Now we're making it productive. I thought it double peaked when GPT-4 came out. I would add another peak here, but the actual level of how fast this happened, 4, 5, 6 months, the full cycle. It's gone through, and now we're at productivity levels. So pretty impressive stuff. And the speed, you're right, it's accelerating massively. So that's the direction and the din of where we're doing. And it's affecting jobs, careers. Those tech layoffs are not directly related to this AI stuff. So that's the other warning. Be careful of thinking that, oh yeah, all these high tech layoffs, they must be being replaced by AI. No, there's other market conditions affecting that. So,
and I think a lot of people just blame AI and say it's not my fault. And again, not saying it is your fault, but we live in an age where skills need to be refined. Is that, you deal with a lot of students. I remember back, going to time travel here, and I'm sure you can relate. I remember the days when software companies like Intuit, they had enough time to produce a textbook on QuickBooks, and the textbook and the software would get released at the same time.
It would match. What a concept.
Yeah, and they knew they could sell that textbook for the next 3 to 5, 10 years because people would use the software. Last time I was deeply involved with Intuit and QuickBooks, I did training videos, and I finally stopped because 2 weeks in, it was outdated. How are students looking at the future? Because I took a 4-year degree program, I can't even fathom day one of that program, like coming in, you said November of 2020,
November 30th.
2021, November 30th, coming in and this GPT thing is nothing. Just imagine 4 years from now, what are you going to be covering at university? I don't ask for a prediction, but what's the mood in the student base?
Students, some are early adopters. I did 3 surveys in 3 classes. One, over 75% were using it. This is about a month and a half ago. One, just over half. One, less than a quarter. So students are using it. Not everybody's adapted to it. I've integrated it in my classes pretty regularly. I use it in the class, and showing the shortcomings as well as the benefits is the goal. The critical thought is, as we mentioned earlier, that critical thinking piece is crucial to think critically of any and all tools. We know the trends in learning. It's lifelong learning. It's skills-based. There are certain skills we need to develop. We have other skills we need to develop, the emotional intelligence side of things. I've got something called the 4 Qs that I work with. Okay, intelligent quotient, IQ, you can't do a lot with, but EQ you can. That is a learned skill. You can interact more, you can communicate better. Those are things, those are tracks. Adversity quotient, AQ, you can do, because AQ is, okay, my definition of failure is called learning experience. All right, I've never failed. I've been fired. I didn't call it a failure. Okay, I blew it. I've had businesses succeed. I've had businesses not succeed, but every one I learned in.
Yeah.
So calling them learning experiences is much more appropriate, I think, and it got me on the path and where I'm at today. Had something change, some people will say, so Scott, what would you change about, what you did 20, 30 years ago? And if you asked me 10, 15 years ago, I'd tell you. If you asked me now, I'd say nothing. What do you mean? You wouldn't change anything? It got me to where I am right now. I'm alive. I'm enjoying, and I get to talk to you, Jeff. What more could I ask for? But being able to track it, and you're saying, well, what does the future hold? We have to continuously learn.
Yeah.
So beyond the adversity quotient, when you get kicked down, how resilient are you? How fast do you get up? Then there's the cultural quotient, and that's the DEI and B. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Can't get away from that either. but having a diversity of ideas, insights, different thoughts, different backgrounds. And I'm not done, and it covers a lot of avenues of diversity. So those are the areas to grow, and that cultural quotient, the CQ, is another one that is kind of important to understand and be aware of and adapt to. And then understand your own biases. This AI stuff is biased. It's based on a biased data set. It's based on stuff that's on the web. It has its biases.
Yeah.
Some of it's nonsense.
Well, I don't know if I told you this, Scott, but I asked ChatGPT, I said, how will AI enslave or eliminate humanity? And it gave me a chilling answer. And it said, we are programmed by humans, so we're only as good or as bad as our coders. And I was like, oh shit, we're screwed.
You got a good point. I heard of a conversation that said, how can we solve the climate crisis? The answer was kill all the humans.
Yep. We're the problem in a lot of cases.
Yep. So hopefully there are some guide rails that we're following, and we're kind of protecting ourselves somewhat. It doesn't take too many bad players, though, to take it. Chaos GPT is one of those environments that's destined to destroy the world. And we will keep Skyrim out of this.
Excellent. Now, Scott, last question, and people know that you and I can talk all day. What's a good place? How can people follow you? How can they connect with you? I know you're doing a lot of speaking over the summer. How can people follow you and your exploration into this new world relatively new world of AI?
As you can tell from my back shelf, I'm a LinkedIn fan, not just writing the book, but reading a whole bunch of others. And so LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. Although, a quick story, I have a newsletter that I distribute. It's got about over 5,000 people on this newsletter in the career space. And this past December, I created a LinkedIn newsletter. I said, it's going to be so much easier. I don't have to go through this mail merge stuff and this hassle. I'll just put the newsletter out there and people read it. And it caught on. I think we're at 4,300 plus now in like 4 months or 5 months in December. So that, by the way, it's a great tool. I have ChatGPT conversations in every one of those, but it's a career focused. But the opportunity to follow on LinkedIn, grab the newsletter. But when I sent out to my email list, I said, by the way, and this is going out to a lot of job folks seeking employment, career service offices, and HR folks that are our employers and recruiters. And that's the orientation in the career space. And so I said, by the way, we got this newsletter on LinkedIn. Would love to have you subscribe, become a part of it. And I got so many responses saying, I prefer the email. and these were folks that say, and someone gave me reasons like, because it's easier to forward. It's easier to save and read it later. Yeah. I was expecting all these career folks are going to be on LinkedIn. Some people weren't even on LinkedIn, which that's another story. 90% of recruiters are using it. But I looked at that and I said, okay, that's interesting. So I'm keeping the email distribution. Just you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, said pop on the list, or use my LinkedIn newsletter, which is a monthly right now. We're looking to make it probably more frequent, but I'll be in Minneapolis. I'll be in Denver. I'll be down in Orlando this summer. So if you're in any of those areas, I would love to catch up and meet up. I'll be in Charleston too. And I've got a bunch of virtual gigs. Maryland Career Development Association I just did, and I've got some other career development folks that we're doing online training, and we're having fun. It's powerful stuff. Scary, a lot of fear in the air, but I'm more optimistic than fearful. And hopefully you are too.
There's more potential for opportunity than there is threat. And, I tell my 10-year-old all the time that bravery is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward into the unknown, even though you have fear. So I think AI is going to test our bravery as a species, if that's fair.
I heard a quote once, fear and faith cannot coexist. So if you have fear, that's going to dominate. But if you have faith, it will carry through, and it's self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're positive, you're upbeat. I mean, if you keep smiling, it carries the day.
Well, and people like you are going to bring us cause for hope and optimism. So thank you very much for being on the show, Scott.
Honor is mine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.